All right, and welcome to the CodeX Cantina. No crypto today. This is not going to be our usual analytical breakdown. We are doing a fireside chat. Now, what that means is there's going to be kind of less spoilers. We're going to kind of only really talk about the first part of the book, maybe some high-level themes, and just general reaction. For those of you that didn't know, I have joined the NYRB Book Club, where they're going to send one book a month, and I figured we'd just try this out for a year, kind of review these books, and see if it's worth it, to see if you guys would like to do a similar sort of setup. So this month's selection is Walter Kempowski's Marrow and Bone, and some of you probably have heard of Walter Kempowski. He is a very famous writer, more famous for his collection of letters from, I think, soldiers from World War II that he kind of collected and put together. A titan of European literature. Now, this story is called Marrow and Bone, but my understanding is also released under the translator's title of Homeland. And Marrow and Bone, I think, is more closely to the translation back in German, which has some ties from a German translation standpoint to Hebrews 4:12 in the King James Bible. It doesn't translate to the same thing in English, but for those of you that are kind of curious where that came from, it's interesting. So what did I think about this, just from a quick fireside chat perspective? I really enjoyed this work. I think this is something where if I see a Kempowski work on the shelves, I don't think I would hesitate to pick it up and check it out. He really impressed me because this man knows how to write. I looked at a few reviews online, and I couldn't disagree more, where I saw some people say it starts out a little bit slow and it's not until halfway through the novel that he kind of takes off on his journey. I think trying to sell this as a road trip is really unfair, perhaps, to what the literature is saying behind it. To me, the first part's really just kind of like exploring the main character. Jonathan is German. He's living in Hamburg. He's 43 years old. He has this really awkward relationship with his girlfriend, Ulla, where I don't know if it's normal, but they're sleeping in separate rooms, and it's very clear they're kind of showing a disconnect between them. And you see him kind of start to explore the city. So you are living over Jonathan's shoulder throughout this, and you get to play a journalist, almost. Like, you're viewing all of these events, and I don't think Kempowski in any way is trying to rationalize or demonize any of the actions of the past. I think he's doing a really good job of reporting perhaps some of the horrors that we have committed without trying to pass necessarily direct, opinionated, He's letting you make up your mind as a reader, which I think is really important for good literature. So he's exploring the city. He's got this estranged girlfriend, and even the apartment that they live in terms of the flooring having a cover-up. You see a lot of two sides to the picture in terms of the northern area of Mecklenburg having a lot of Flemish influence. He talks about the East Prussian immigration there and how a lot of them don't like to talk about the past. He's kind of exploring this, what is an identity? And that really kicks off, like maybe some other readers have noticed, once he gets into the East Prussia side, where they talk about how, Poland being, Russian as opposed to German, as opposed to, being oppressed and liberated constantly and over again. What are the influences that causes on them? You look at the Mecklenburg comment, and I think that's kind of saying not all Germans are the same. There's different influences and such. And then when we go to the Eastern Prussian side, when they're in Poland, you got the macho driver racer who's looking for the sausages from his homeland, and he sees those influences in the land that, the Germans influenced and conquered at one point in time. You still see the cultural influences in the past there. And I think this novel does a really good job of kind of exploring the influences that cultures have on each other, and also what it means to look back on the past and recognize some things. The main character, Jonathan, his mom, you learn this in the beginning, this isn't spoiler information at all, died in birth in giving him. And his father died in the war. And when he's offered a chance to go to Poland to write upon behalf of the Santa Barbara car company for him, he kind of is hesitant. He doesn't jump on it. Because like many characters in the story, he's afraid to kind of recognize maybe some of the past. His girlfriend is this art exhibitionist, and her job is basically a display of cruelty, a display of violence in art, very representative of her character too. And the way that they look at art and the way they look at the past, you can see Jonathan being a little bit afraid of going back and facing his past, but he does go on the trip, and having this macho racer, the macho racer driver, and this PR woman who's an extreme character, and it's very interesting, the relationship between these 3 characters. But what happens is information's presented from a scene, and you got the macho guy that reacts. You got the PR person that reacts, and they're German in heritage and nationality, that they've got a lot of pride in their German. They look at things through a German lens. And I think what Jonathan's doing is he's trying to understand, I feel like, more so than put everything through the lens maybe of his home country that he's used to, his homeland. So overall, I would say that this is not a road trip journey. This is a man facing the past, but it's about society facing the past, about society recognizing the clashes between cultures and the influence that we have on each other. It's a lot more than just one man's journey. This is mankind's journey of the past that we can't escape. What's done is done. So how do we learn from it? How do we see what we've done? And how do we see kind of how that's impacted people in this area? I would give a slight warning that you kind of need to have, I think, a little bit more of a European knowledge and a little bit more of an art background. Kempowski, I don't know how his other writings are, but they're very descriptive in terms of calling out a specific work of art, a specific artist, a specific texture. Art is used constantly throughout this, that he's using that as archetype to describe a scene. Where if you don't know what that painting is, I wrote down here the mealtime prayer. I wasn't familiar with that work of art, and they were describing characters as looking like they were from that. I kind of had to go look that up, kind of look some history of that up to really digest what that scene was trying to tell me. Because I will say that it seems to me Walter Kempowski is an extremely deliberate writer. He is specifically crafting a very vignette-driven novel to draw out specific things in each scene. So it's not this huge landscape of never-ending events. It's very vignette-driven, but very, very competently put together, that I'm very impressed with his writing, and I would highly recommend it. But if you don't have a huge background on that or don't know a lot about European history, there's not a lot of context given to you in the novel. Some authors will spoon-feed and hand you a lot of the information. This isn't one of those novels. So I can't say it's for everyone. But if you are one that's into literature in general, or into and have a basic rudimentary element of art, or aren't afraid to Google things like I am, I think this is definitely something that you should consider checking out. It's a great piece. This is worth, I think, breaking down. If Crypto and I ever come to the agreement that we'll break this down, this could probably easily be a two-piece or video that we would do in our usual in-depth series. But until then, in terms of my recommendations on this novel, I think you should get it. I think it's really good. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's Fireside Chat. I know we don't go into as much usual detail in these. If you guys would really, really like us to break this down, and I would love to, if that's something that you guys would be interested in, I could talk to Crypto and see if we could do, if that's something that you guys would want to enjoy. But if not, definitely consider picking this up. I think it is worth your effort and your time. A beautiful, beautiful piece. Una out.